Did you prep for the right show?
I I did this time. I did
We
manage.
should say very clearly, this is a late show. That we were supposed to, this whole Afterthoughts on Bill Martin was supposed to come out to you all last week. And Dodge and I gathered, and we were all ready, and we pushed record, and then discovered that Dodge had prepared for an Afterthoughts that we had already released.
Well, I listened to the show that Pete sent me to prepare on. And I was like, wow, this sounds familiar. I could swear that I've made some of these points before, but at least I know what I want to talk about. And then I get on and Pete's like, Dodge, we're not talking about Jerry. And I was like, well, why'd you send me the Jerry show? He's like, did I send you the Jerry show?
I don't know, man.
And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me I sent you the Jerry show? I was like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I just thought I would have that conversation again. I don't know, man.
This time we're really ready. We're really ready.
Well, what stood out to you, man? I got to say, listening to Dear Bill Martin again, I love that guy. I loved the show. I loved his books. I so enjoyed talking with him.
Yeah, he's pretty down-to-earth guy. I got to tell you, I haven't been able to remember his last name, Martin, because my brain has so sufficiently supplanted Martin with Dow. He's just Bill Dow, and that's always who he's going to be to me.
The Dow of Bill.
Yeah, Dow of Bill, Bill's Dow, Bill Dow.
Bill's
you mean William Dow? Yeah. I was really fascinated by a couple of points. And first of all, I feel like I just learned a great truth about Santa Claus, if you know what I mean, when he says that Lao Tzu is probably legendary.
Probably legendary.
Yeah, at least semi-legendary. And I thought that was awesome because it never occurred to me that he wasn't. It never occurred to me that he wasn't this mystical figure, but that I'll tell you why this is great. And this is not me as a skeptic, right? This is me saying that there is somebody who was the seed of great wisdom that is genuinely good and healthy and not divisive and doesn't aspire to war and conquering and proselytization, and that it is just presented in the spirit of goodness. And the fact that that could still be something worth talking about today is a great balancing factor in the universe for me. Does that make sense? Am I making any sense at all?
The idea that some human back there, some actual person could be the germination of such extraordinary and lasting wisdom, and then disappear a little bit into the haze of legendary history. Yeah. And be hard to distinguish from, what's been made up about him and what was historically so. Yeah. And the fact
maybe
that that's
Bill,
true of all the great ones, right? I mean, the Buddha was said to have been born almost fully formed and able to stand and talk from day one. And
I think that's probably a bit of a legend.
Probably so. If not, it's really horrifying to all women who've given birth to imagine his poor mother's experience that day. And it's harder to kind of know more about the historical Jesus versus the miraculous Jesus versus, where there's legendary embellishment, where there's stuff lost in translation on purpose or by accident. I mean, it's this way when you fast forward 2,500 years or so.
Yeah, right. Which I find crazy and kind of fantastic, because so much of the other stuff that we talk about, I mean, you bring up the sort of the Jesus and Muhammad and like any of the other great sort of spiritual leaders and figures have provided the seed for great consternation over the many, many years, right? Great struggle and battle and war and the great cycles of, and I just don't see any of that with the Tao. Like, nobody's fighting over the Tao. If you fight over the Tao, it's not the Tao. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right. That that was a beautiful thing that stood out for me. If you can write it down, it's not the Tao.
Yeah.
If you can speak the Tao, it's not the Tao. That's super confusing, but
which
I
of
love
course
it.
is probably again true of Buddhism and
Yeah.
Christianity and Hinduism and and so on.
Well,
It
yeah, that's
is
a really good point.
fascinating
As
to
soon as
me
you
to
start documenting it, it becomes
something else.
able to be militarized.
Right. Militarized, weaponized,
Yeah,
canonized.
weaponized. Right.
It gets as soon as we try to bottle an experience or a truth, it becomes something else. It pickles. It is no longer a cucumber.
Gross.
Right. It pickles in that jar.
I thought that was fantastic. That was very touching.
But it is absolutely fascinating that Taoism seems to be the only, great world religions, let's say, over which there has not been enormous dogma, or for that matter, a lot of fighting. Part of me, as I heard him say that, was thinking, well, it may have something to do with the fact that no one can understand what the hell he was really saying. Like only the most sophisticated listener who sits down for a nice long time to listen has any idea what this paradoxical document is getting at. And
yeah,
so it's
in 1,000 years, we'll
about.
be doing that with like machine learning documentation, right? Like nobody gets it. You're making it up.
Right. So there's a lot of really beautiful paradoxical stuff in here. And you know very well, like that as I was preparing for this and after talking with him, I spent a good amount of time going, man, I wonder if that's what really this show is.
Yeah.
I said that to him. It's been my hobbies, my career. I just had never really noticed how much Taoism is just woven into everything I care about. And it's even made me wonder, like, would I want to change the name of the show to something like the Tao of Change instead of the Change Paradox? Because it's really all the elements of change, that all the Taoist elements of change that I find so fascinating, but especially the paradoxical ones. Anyway, we've talked about it. We'll see what happens
percolates,
with that. Yeah, what percolates in the end.
This whole idea of trying to figure out the line between action and inaction in the spirit of the Tao, like how movement is not movement. And I guess that's what you're talking about. I mean, that's the central paradox of Taoism. And but boy, does it come into focus when you have it on the brain and you are met with an opportunity to create conflict or a situation of stress, a professional situation of stress, something worth arguing about at home, something you feel like you need to gear up for, to muscle up for, and then I have Bill Dow's voice over my head, just sitting on my shoulder, kind of reminding me, what would Lao Tse do? What if he were sitting under that tree and he were writing about this experience that you're having right now? What do you think he would be writing? And I'm met with the paradox, like. It makes me think of who was it? It was notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who said sometimes in a marriage it's a real benefit to be a little deaf. That is a Taoist perspective for me, right? That is when confronting conflict, at some point, would the Tao encourage me to be a little deaf in order to navigate my way through peace in the spirit of peace? And so that's been on my mind, like that, confronting any opportunity where I feel like I'm already getting emotional about it. How do I pivot? How would the Tao encourage me to pivot?
Yeah, I think you got your finger right on the most mysterious element of all of this. A huge part of that is expressed in that idea of Wei Wu Wei, or sometimes shortened to just Wu Wei, that doing without doing. Which really is like, how do we do without forcing it?
Yeah.
How do we let it naturally arise from us instead of doing the thing we normally do. And then built it into that. And that's so freaking fascinating to me is this idea of kind of mutually arising opposites.
Talk about that.
Remember when he was talking about constellation?
I use that word a lot.
Yeah.
And he used it in all kinds of different forms. To constellate, I've never considered using that word that way.
Right. That's a cool verb.
Yeah.
I think what I understand Taoism saying is, so first of all, this part's not so hard to understand. We can't even know what tall is if we don't have a concept of short.
Right.
We can't know what light is if we don't have an idea of dark. Everything in this world of form is understood. You know, every peak of a wave is understood in the context of its trough and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So a wave can't arise out of the sea without borrowing water from somewhere, and it creates a trough.
Mm-hmm.
Taoism, I think, would say we have to remember when we are creating a wave that we're also going to be creating a trough. Right. That we have to be careful what we constellate because of this law of mutually arising opposites. And so some part of us, when we go fighting for a particular outcome, is constellating another part of us that's fighting the outcome. Unless we are really in sync with the Tao. So I came across this poem that I love. I love this poem, and I have for years. And it was one of those, like, you know, Facebook is reminding you of posting this 5 years ago kind of moments where it popped up. And this poem is written by my Tai Chi teacher's teacher. His name was Chungman Ching, and he was really probably the greatest and easily the most famous, if not the greatest, Tai Chi teacher of, you know, the last, say, century. Mm-hmm. He was also a professor of kind of many things and a towering intellect in China at the time. And he really kind of rethought of Tai Chi in new ways and taught it in new ways and kind of reworked the form in ways. And it's now the most popular way it's practiced in the world. Mm-hmm. Anyway, really wise man, also an incredibly loving man. There's a wonderful story of him. He was just a phenomenal martial artist. And he was with his top student in New York. They'd gone out to lunch and they get mugged in broad daylight by some punks with nothing, maybe knives with them. And they want his wallet. And the student smiles, thinking to himself, God, they have no idea what old man they're holding up. This is going to be funny. And Chungman Ching pulls out his wallet and peacefully, even cheerfully, hands it to them.
Yeah.
Right. And afterward, the guy's like, you got to be freaking kidding me. What was that? Like, you could have eaten these guys for lunch. And he was like, I live with too many ghosts already. They must have needed the money more than I did.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the guy I'm about to read a poem from. So check this out as we're thinking about, you know, the way we seek or what we're trying to do or create in the world and how differently he thinks about it. Here it goes. Do not seek to become powerful. Seek only to release fear from the body-mind. Do not chase after joy. Only breathe out your pain, your grief, your loss. Do not ask for mastery. Ask only to shed that which is unnatural and disharmonious. Darkness and day follow each other. Heavy is the root of light. Stillness is the mother of movement. Emptiness is the source of 10,000 things. Release, breathe, shed, stand still, undo. Let your tears fall into the earth beneath your feet. Let your sorrows sink and become your root. What you thought was weakness will become your strength. Where fear has been dissolved, laughter blooms. After looking inward, the spirit rises.
That's really cool. And I think that gets to what I was trying inelegantly to say before. When you say what it means to be in sync with the Tao, and the experience of the old man getting held up at knife point and giving away his wallet, he is a guy who is consciously aware, maybe subconsciously aware, of the trough that the wave is creating. And I think that is most of us just experience the wave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without being aware of the trough, that there is a deficit somewhere in our lives that's causing, or that will cause some sort of imbalance when we're living in the wave.
Yeah. So beautiful. You're right. There's that element of it. He's a wave that he's a wave. He's aware that he could have asserted power there.
Yeah.
And coming with it would be powerlessness.
Yes. Yeah.
A powerlessness over the ghost of the guy, whose arm would never work right again or whatever. But he instead joined the moment and cheerfully gave the money away and taught his lead student a wonderful lesson as he did it.
Yeah.
This is so Taoist. Here's another example, which, it creates really interesting action when you're working in wisely. In Chinese medicine, which is very, very Taoist, they often seem to be working in, opposite the direction we would expect them to. So Dr. Sheng, who is, my doctor and colleague and landlord and teacher of many, many, many years, and dear, dear friend, she would surprise me on a regular basis, as we were in session. I would ask her about something and I would just be like, wait, what? And she would often laugh at me and she'd say, remember, to pull a weed, you must first stomp it into the ground. Push it downward first and then pull it upward. Yeah. And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, you have to break the root.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I just have the teeth thing. The teeth. You stab down there and it clamps down. You
just clamp and just grabs it, right?
It's a clamp.
That sort of works. So when I at one point was saying, Dr. Sheng, I'm just having a rough week, man. I'm just wondering, I feel so disconnected from God. Is there some way that, your needles could help me? What do I need to do? And she said, without missing a beat, as if she got this question, regularly, she said, it's your root. To go up, you have to go down. And I was like, wait, what? And she was saying, your connection to the earth is the problem. And so she did all these points in my feet. And she said, I want you to breathe down through your feet all the way down into the earth. Then you can connect to God. And it worked. So strange. But how often are we working the wrong direction?
Yeah. Well, it's why we use the word grounded, right? Grounded. Right. That implies readiness for growth and change and strength.
Isn't that wild?
So what else stuck out for you with Bill Dow?
Bill Dow. I was thinking a lot about just kind of softness in the world. I mean, watching my teeth clench when I am aware of some news flash about something that seems bad. Mm-hmm. And trying to notice all the funny ways that I'm in a sense I'm in that same wave. I'm just on the other side of it. Like I'm in the exact same energy. I just want to go the other way. I've assumed the same disdain, the same superiority, the same dehumanizing thoughts about them that they seem to have about me and the people I care about. I can so easily, as an activist, even if I'm an activist only in my own mind reading headlines, take on the same violence I wish to soothe in the world.
So we had this experience. I don't know. Do you watch the CBS Sunday Morning? Do you watch that show?
Not very often, no.
Yeah. We have a little ritual.
I have certainly a lot in the past, but not lately.
It's okay, man. You don't have to show off. It's okay. we have a little ritual around here where we wake up early in the morning on Sunday. It airs at 7, and so we get up at 6:45 and we make the coffee and we sit down and we watch it because it's kind of a pretend news show. Like they talk about news and they have correspondents, but mostly it's a journalist who happens to live in Italy and talks about food most of the time, right? That's really what Sunday morning is. And this last week, they did a whole hour and a half on policing in this country. And it was just the atrocities. It was awful. And it was awful about here's how bad we're doing it here. Here are the one or two isolated human interest stories about that where we're getting it right. Here's what's going on around the country or around the world where there's, policing is happening in a better and more humane way and all of that, right? We got about 2 stories in and we turned it off. And because I couldn't face it, right? And I've been feeling the sort of guilt about having to turn it off. And part of the reason I turned it off is because it's not why I tune into Sunday morning. I need the pretend news about quiches is what I really need. I need to be able to complain about home decorating stories, right? That's what I really need. And they gave me real truth, like real talk, and I was not a good time for me to do it. But I've been feeling guilty about it, and I've been trying to put my finger on why. Because obviously it is important. It's important as a citizen that we understand these things. We've done shows on this very subject, shows that are hard to listen to because of the detail that comes out around police violence. And so that balance between feeling like to be an informed citizen, I need to be present in the reality of my country and feeling like I need to hide from the assault of it. Right. That is a paradox that is hard to live in around some of the things that we're dealing with in the body politic in this country right now around race and privilege and in fact it is, I recognize, a huge privilege that I even can turn it off. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many who cannot turn off who they are and why they are subject to these stories. And so I've been thinking about what is the wave and the trough of that experience for me, being able to take out the rage of my privilege on CBS Sunday morning, which is ridiculous, objectively ridiculous. And it's been kind of getting me worked up a little bit about it. And isn't that indicative of where we are right now, right? Where we all in some capacity walk around in the wave, right? Aware of the trough behind us or not, but existing in that sort of heightened experience of tension and reaction just because of what we have created as human organisms in this country right now.
The world is really, really young right now. I mean, I think we are in these waves, of course, can be really, really big, really, really long-acting waves.
Yeah.
And lots of these waves started way before our lives started. And will be, working their way
long
out
after.
Long afterward. I'm really curious about that. If there's anything to astrology or to some of the Hindu, sages, kind of prophecies, predictions, observations about the great waves of humankind, we have reached a pinnacle of yang, of masculinity in human history, and we're beginning to move the other way. But as a wave, we all know what happens at the peak of a wave. Like there is a whole lot of action right there at that, as that wave curls and crashes, and we're in it.
Yeah, I think, insofar as that experience of feeling like I'm both present and hiding, at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, right? That's the challenge for me. And I sit back and I think, what is what's Lao Tse saying under the tree right now? What is he saying about the wave and the trough? What's he saying about the opposites to help sort of move through when existing inside of that state of conflict?
And stillness is the mother of movement. Sometimes we have to kind of be quiet, go quiet for a while. It's hard to know, for me sometimes whether I'm in avoidance or whether I'm finally in non-reactivity and I'm just letting myself be with it. I am trying to take kind of more action in my inaction, bring more stillness. So a lot for me ends up being in the prayer side of it. Like, not just in the dear God, that sucks, fix it kind of prayers, but in, can I send metta, Buddhist loving kindness, to an issue or a group or a part of the world? Can I meet even those who seem to be playing the parts of villains in my reading of the script? Can I somehow meet them inside with compassion and not with my steadfast certainty that this is bad and this is good, and the only way this gets better is if it changes the way I think it should change? Like, I don't know that that's always the case. It's almost always more complicated than I think. And there are almost always at least some really good people on the other side of a point of view that give me pause. I'm really lucky in my job to get to work with so many wonderful people, and not all of them agree with me, and they teach me a lot of neat things. So I've been practicing not knowing things for sure, recognizing how often life laughs at me when I think I do know something for sure. But also where I can, also listen, feeling for that place where it feels like some deeper movement is calling me to take some action.
There's we've talked before. I went through this whole period where I was trying to reduce the number of strong opinions I had about things. Because there was a while where I found I feel strongly about everything. Like, I'm just letting myself get riled up about every little thing. Like, yes, I want breakfast burritos for dinner, and I will have my breakfast burritos dinner. Why would I have a strong opinion about that? And so it was sort of a meditative, like every fork in the road that I came to, I had to stop and sort of take a breath, find myself, and think, do I really care about the breakfast burrito issue at hand? And the answer is,
what am I constellating with this?
Most often, the answer is, I do not care about said breakfast burritos that much. And people started laughing at me because, like, it became my constant footnote. I have no strong opinion about this. What do you think we should watch tonight? I have no strong opinion about this. It was enormously liberating. But as with most things, the pendulum doth swing both ways, right? And eventually I found, you know what? I think the act of not caring about or not having many strong opinions means you actually do have to stop and think, do I have any strong opinions anymore? Like, I've sort of habituated this act of not caring about stuff, and suddenly I'm living the living embodiment of idiocracy, right? Like, now I just don't care about anything, and so I feel like there is there is that place in the middle where you do get to be reflective before you reach avoidance. That's the reason I wrote that down, avoidance, because that is the sort of unintended outcome of my little experience with no strong opinions, is suddenly it became too easy to avoid the hard things.
Here's what flashed as you were saying that. The pendulum doth swing both ways. help me sort of understand this idea of constellating. Like, as soon as you get real active about this idea that this huge heavy pendulum belongs over there, and you get busy shoving it over there, guess what you put in motion?
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's kind of what they're talking about mutually arising action. So when you're shoving the pendulum with will, this is what comes about.
Yeah. But that's the paradox too, is that the pendulum cannot stand still. Like you start thinking, well, sure, it'd be great if it was just right in the middle all the time, but it kind of can't, because that leads to apathy.
Does it?
I don't know. It does to me. I feel like the act of the pendulum swinging is what brings around a necessary conflict that allows you to see things from other perspectives, other points of view.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that could be fine. So I studied medical qigong, for those of you out there who don't know that about me. And they talk about these different energies. And intention, yi, is different from will, zhi, which is different from the enactment of effort toward one's will, And in the Tai Chi world, what they say, I'm getting somewhere, I promise I'm coming back to that, is that you want the intention to guide the chi and the chi to guide the body, rather than just move your muscles around.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it's a much, much quieter way to be in motion. Like it's like the universe, it's like you're just raising a sail rather than pulling out the oars. So your intention is aim the boat towards shore, draw the sail up, and begin to catch a breeze that already would gladly take you in, rather than get into this splashing about of, rowing and rowing and rowing till your back breaks. What I wonder about is, like, do we have to shove the pendulum to get to the other side of it? Or is there a way that we can, like, hold an intention for a change that doesn't have to be so driven by our certainty that the only way to create that change is through the outcome we want? Like, can we be involved in the process without being so freaking determined about the outcome?
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe we're talking about different things, or I didn't explain sort of my act of awareness that comes from the pendulum metaphor, because I kind of feel like I need to explore and experience hard things in order to have new ideas and new experiences and new feelings about the opinions that I have, that I hold deeply. The things I feel strongly about, they need to be tested over time, right? And so let's say, I need to be dragged into a strong opinion in order to see the trough behind it, right? That's kind of where the metaphor comes in, to see the empty space behind it. It's not necessarily that the act of will itself or intention, I may be using those wrong from your explanation, but it's not as if the act of intention is necessarily an ill, is it?
No, definitely not the intention part. The will, I think, is where we start to constellate opposites.
It is this act of taking a stand. Is that a willful act? Like, okay, let's say I have a strong opinion about police violence, for example. Is that a willful act or willful statement?
This gets really blurry. I mean, it's a great question.
Yeah.
Let's say, I mean, especially when you're talking about subjects so huge and so complex, involving so many.
Do we need to go back to the breakfast burritos? Because that's always there. That's back pocketed.
Yeah. Let's go back to breakfast burrito for a minute, because I think that's
not expect that. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this.
We're going to do this.
This is getting real.
This.
Yeah.
Right. The will is I'm going to damn well have my breakfast burrito.
Mm-hmm.
The intention beneath it is probably, I want to enjoy dinner. The problem with asserting one's will about the breakfast burrito is there's a real chance you're going to create a fight with a whole lot of people who think that they were kind of beyond that, at breakfast time. And you really are going to push your damn breakfast burrito, and they just would like to have something that sounds more like dinner to them. And before you know it, even if you've gotten your way, you haven't enjoyed dinner at all. The whole thing's been an argument.
Yeah. You
And
sort
so
of suck the life out of it.
Yep. So a piece of what I hear you saying is, I'm kind of tired of getting so attached to getting my way that I can't enjoy anything if I don't get my way. And for that matter, I'm creating a lot of conflict in my life, at least, in arguments happening in my head with people I disagree with.
Yep.
And
I don't walk around with a rattle screaming, "I want my way! I want my way!" That's
totally not you. But a lot of us, I mean, politically right now, this whole damn country is stuck in this thing where we are wanting our way and we're furious with somebody about not getting it. So again, that gets us into really complicated territory. But staying with the breakfast burrito.
I think let's just substitute, any, a highly charged debate for a breakfast burrito. I mean, if breakfast burrito were like nationalized healthcare or, the vaccination rates or, whatever it could be right now, like that burrito could represent just about anything. And I think I'm getting where you're going. The belief that like feeling emotionally about my breakfast burrito isn't necessarily the wrong thing, right? Feeling so emotionally that I exert authority in such a way that everybody ends up losing is not a great thing.
What might be a great thing is rewinding to my intention is to enjoy dinner.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a wonderful dinner. I'm going to enjoy this time. I'm going to enjoy my meal. I'm going to really be in my body and in my hands and in my mouth and in the love I have for my family. And I don't know what it is that I'll be sticking in my face at the moment.
None of that is allowed. It invites me to separate from my strong opinion that I really like breakfast burritos.
Yeah.
I might not eat one tonight, but if I get all of column A, which is I'm going to thrive through dinner, whatever I put in my face, then I can also still say, what also is great is breakfast burritos. That gets back to this is exactly where I wanted to go, which is this idea. This is why I did my whole little experience of not having strong opinions about stuff, because what I was doing was separating the burrito from the will of always eating burritos.
And then you start to go, but wait, I've lost track of how much I love breakfast burritos. And I think Lao Tzu and Bill Martin and lots of people who are wise enough to understand this better than I do would probably say, no, you don't have to let go of loving breakfast burritos. You might want to just get a little less attached to the outcome of having your damn breakfast burrito right now, because there may be a better way to fully enjoy dinner, which was the real intention. And maybe an example maybe we can take this to this bigger political place where people are feeling really active. Some are feeling very activated by the need to change police forces and defund police because they are not equipped to handle mental health issues, and so they're doing lots of violence. And in the process, they may not even be aware of what their deeper intention is. All they know is they're sure police forces have become bad. Other people out there are super activated saying, no, 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 it's criminals who are bad. We need more police. And they also often have lost track of their deeper intention. And the funny thing is, the deeper intention for both of them is we need peace.
Yeah.
We need people to be able to live without fear of being hurt, either by criminals or by cops.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we could hold that intention without getting so into forcing that into the world through the one means where sure it can come. We might be closer to the way, this sort of doing without doing. the action without force, the sailing without rowing.
Here's a thing that I am absolutely sure of, that beginning today, you will begin using the breakfast burrito as a metaphor in your own practice. Because I think we just unlocked something really powerful, you and I, today.
Really powerful, Pete.
Yeah, this is pretty special.
That's going to change everybody's day. The breakfast burrito is all I will think about till dinner time.
I need to write Bill Dow and tell him we've got something. He can have it. He can have it.
He can have a breakfast
free.
Burrito.
He can have it. He can use it, whatever he needs. It will unlock the Dow, I think, in a way that he's never experienced. The Dow of burritos.
Right. The Chef's Tao Te Ching is his next book. I can feel it coming. You're welcome, Bill.
You're welcome.
We love
Bill.
you.
Thanks, B.
I love you, Pete.
Love you, buddy.